50 years ago, the gospel seed was planted in Korea. Since then, Korea has developed into an economic powerhouse and a model democratic society. Equally impressive has been the growth of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in the land of the morning calm. From a handful of faithful saints, church membership now numbers more than 80,000, serving as a solid anchor for further expansion into Asia. We dedicate this presentation to the Lord in order to remember those servants who devoted themselves to building the Lord's kingdom in this part of His vineyard. On December 2, 1920, a then-young Elder David O. Mckay of the Quorum of the 12 received direction from President Heber J. Grant to tour the missions of the world and to report on their status. On a trip from Japan to China, Elder Mckay stopped in Busan. Elder Hugh J. Cannon, who accompanied Elder Mckay, wrote, "When visitors arrive in Busan, Korea, they get the feeling that they are in a completely different world. The people's actions, clothing, interesting hair accessories, along with the villages that look like groups of mushrooms from afar, all make you want to stop and get acquainted with the people." Perhaps even then, Elder Mckay had a feeling that the true gospel would someday be preached in this chosen land. The first Korean to become a Latter-day Saint was Kim Jae-han. Born in 1878, he grew up with Sung Man-ri, who later became Korea's first president. On January 13, 1903, he left his homeland on Korea's first immigration ship, the Gallic. Arriving in Hawaii with Sung Man-ri, Kim Jae-han worked as a sugar farm manager. He met a Hawaiian woman and got married, later having 14 children. On September 20th, 1927, he had a mysterious dream about the church. He later found the church and was immediately baptized. Of their 14 children, 3 passed away, and 11 grew to maturity. All were baptized and are active members living in Hawaii, California, or Texas. Every 2 years, the family has a reunion in Hawaii. As a family, they attended and shared in the deep joy of the 50th anniversary celebration of the church in Korea. In 1945, the Korean people welcomed liberation from Japan with joy. However, this joy lasted but a moment. In 1950, the Korean War broke out, bringing a whirlwind of confusion and destruction. However, this was a time of great growth all over the world for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. At this time, church membership exceeded 1 million. This progress came about in many places outside the United States. The first Latter-day Saint worship services in Korea were held on October 22, 1946. Nearly 35 members met in room 319 of the Bondo Hotel with Lieutenant Barker as their leader. Soon Korean people were invited to the services. Brother Harridge replaced Lieutenant Barker as leader until he also returned home. The spirit of missionary work was already instilled in their hearts. In November 1949, a Korean student studying abroad entered Cornell University. This student's name was Kim Ho-jik. Dr. Kim had 2 purposes for studying abroad this late in life. The first was to gain knowledge in the field of nutrition, and the second was to find true religion. He believed the Spirit of the Lord would help him find the true church in America. Dr. Kim met Oliver Wayman, a church member at Cornell. Because of Oliver's sincerity and example, Kim Ho-jik came to read the Book of Mormon and the Articles of Faith by James E. Talmage. A little after 2 years of studying abroad, Kim Ho-jik was baptized in the Susquehanna River on July 29, 1951. Dr. Kim recorded hearing a quiet voice as he came out of the waters of baptism. "Feed my sheep, feed my sheep." Dr. Kim returned to his war-torn nation a few days later. He became president of the National Fishery University of Pusan, and later was appointed as Vice Minister of Education. He greatly contributed to the growth of the church in Korea until his death at age 54 in 1959.
아버님 선생님께서는 10대부터
Beginning with and continuing from his teenage years spent in attendance at Seoul National University's College of Agriculture, my greatly revered father harbored a great deal of religious interest.
정신적인 세계를 많이 동경하시고 이번에 그 제국대학 동북 제국대학 의학부를 가셨는데 이번에 유학하셨을 때 그냥 의학 공부만 하신 게 아니고 또 그 종교 세계에 대해서 많은
At his departure to attend Tokyo Imperial University, my father left not only with a desire to study the medical sciences, but also due to a great deal of curiosity, the added intent of investigating various religions. He was a man always in search of God. Later in his life, while acting as Vice Minister of Education, as well as President of the Hangul Society, he was required to shoulder the additional responsibilities of the former minister. Consequently, he was a very busy man, juggling simultaneously multiple political and social duties. However, despite these numerous responsibilities, he knew with a surety what the priorities in his life were. My father was a man of integrity. After my father's passing, my mother and younger sister suffered a great deal. He passed away, leaving behind no material belongings. However, I cannot help but think the spiritual legacy he left behind was a far greater inheritance. My father's social position would have allowed him to accumulate much wealth, if he had only chosen to do so. Instead, he chose the path of faith and righteousness, his true memorial.
As soon as saints were drafted into the Korean War, church leaders activated the soldier program. In August 1950, area leaders contacted the enlisted young men and women. They made a soldier's address book and conducted religious activities. A special branch was organized and a conference for soldiers was held. Church leaders made every effort to preserve the soldier's spirituality. Elder Eldred G. Smith, while serving as a church patriarch, said in a general conference talk,
"After reading the Book of Mormon, if 10% of the UN soldiers live righteously, ask yourselves how long the Korean War will last. And if 10% are Latter-day Saints who live the gospel, and about 50% of all soldiers live righteously, the power of God will move people's hearts, and peace will come to the earth. I don't know of any other way besides this to be able to have genuine peace."
One soldier recalled,
"A little after we arrived in Pusan, Korea in October 1951, We rowed a boat up the Korean West Sea and landed in Incheon. We went from there inland to a place called Sogangni. At one time there was a city there, but the only thing left were foundations of buildings and homes. About 90% of the unit there were Latter-day Saints, so we decided to build a tiny chapel. We requested to build a chapel, and permission was granted from the stake president. From materials gathered from the wreckage, we built the chapel. We held a dedicatory service, and I had the privilege of offering the dedicatory prayer. I think this must be the first chapel built in Korea. As a meeting house, this building had the role of refuge from the burdens and worries of life, war, and fighting.
While Elder Harold B. Lee led the soldier committee, he either made Latter-day Saint soldiers contact a bishop each month, or he contacted soldiers stationed in that area directly. One bishop even traveled 200 kilometers every Sunday to have sacrament meeting on a naval base. Sometimes soldiers who were sick wrote to the church members, primary children, seminary students, and Boy Scouts in their hometown, highlighting the Korean people's miserable war conditions. They asked the members to assist by sending winter clothes. The Korean War provided impetus for organizing an ROTC department at Brigham Young University. By February 1953, 2,000 students had volunteered. Spencer J. Palmer, then serving as an LDS chaplain in the 8th United States Army, sent a letter requesting help. He told how the saints in Korea who accepted the gospel and completed their required military service had no choice but to go back to their hometowns where there was no church organization. In response, Elder Harold B. Lee of the Quorum of the 12 traveled to Korea to assess the situation and determine whether the country should be open to missionary work. Japan Mission President Hilton A. Robertson accompanied Elder Lee. This visit provided Elder Lee a new perspective. After attending a special meeting, Elder Lee remarked to Chaplain Palmer,
"It's my first time directly meeting young foreigners like this. Tonight, while shaking their hands, I had a moment to look into those young people's eyes. It conveyed to me faith and testimony, and I realized that I felt something I've never felt from any lesson at church. That is, that the Lord loves those young people and values them very much. I was able to see the movements of a great work in Asia and Korea."
When Elder Lee returned to church headquarters, he reported,
"I have seen the beginnings of a divine work in Korea. We must establish a mission in Asia and begin the work of sending missionaries to Korea."
Finally, on August 2, 1955, on a hilltop overlooking Seoul, Elder Joseph Fielding Smith dedicated the land of Korea for preaching the gospel. President Slover, who at the time arranged President Joseph Fielding Smith's visit to Korea for the dedication of the region, recalled,
President Smith then said that he wished to go to Korea to visit all the servicemen's groups there and the organization of the groups in the church, and to dedicate the land of Korea for the preaching of the gospel. Well, at this time, August 1955, Korea had not yet been open for civilian travel, so it was impossible for civilians to go to Korea. I informed President Smith of this, and his reply was, "Please get me to Korea." Well, to obey this directive, President Smith eventually was given an honorary rank in the United States Army as a brigadier general, with all the amenities of an Army general. Accompanied by President Robertson, Grant Eaton, and myself, permission was given then to visit Korea. Sister Smith also wished to go, but this could not be arranged. Instead, she sent with us the recordings of her singing. As you remember what reputation she had with singing. The four of us then, with that recording, took a military flight to Seoul. With the rank of Brigadier General, President Smith was assigned a house on the outskirts of Seoul for billets, and a jeep and driver, and a light plane, and the other amenities of being a general, as he wished to meet with all the LDS groups from the DMZ in the north to Busan in the south. July and August in Korea is very hot and humid. If you're going to survive, you probably are feeling now. The roads then were not paved, very rough and very, very dusty. President Smith was going around with his normal coat, tie, white shirt. We persuaded President Smith to change his usual coat and flat tie for a white sport shirt, which I gave to him. And with President Robinson and myself, he visited the groups, all the groups of the military command, the very bases, and gave inspiring talks, for the most part, based on the scripture in Alma, wickedness was never happiness. I've never forgotten that scripture now. It's hearing it so many times from President Smith, and those talks he gave to the servicemen's groups. Wickedness was never happiness. At each base which we visited, we put the recorded singing platter of Sister Smith on their recording device so that it played all over the base. So she sang to everyone at each base. I took pictures along the way showing President Smith at the DMZ looking to the North Korea, visiting 8th Army headquarters, and so forth, with brother and sister Kim Ho-jik, and as will be described later, dedicating the land of Korea. There will be a showing of these pictures along with this video, I hope. On August the 2nd, 1955, during this time when President Smith was traveling, we were with him at his quarters on his home house that we gave him on the outskirts of Seoul, when he indicated he would like to use that day to dedicate the land of Korea for the preaching of the gospel. Now nearby the house where President Smith was billeted, which was then on the outskirts of Seoul, but now is pretty much in the middle of Seoul. But there's on the outskirts of Seoul, there was a hill, large hill, right across the street from his house. And I suggested that might be a good location to go and dedicate the land. So that is what happened. We proceeded to the site on the hill, and President Smith gave the dedicatory prayer. Unfortunately, the prayer was never recorded, but I did take a slide of the event, and I think you will be able to see that. He certainly did bless the land and bless the people. I'm sure the blessings that he asked for.
In the dedicatory prayer, Elder Smith asked the Lord to set the Korean people free from Satan and no longer be bound by the shackles of war and poverty. The first Korean mission was not organized until 7 years later, but Korea was already a ripened field.
"50 years ago, Francis and I were living in our home in Kahaluu on the island of Oahu in Hawaii. We had both completed missions in Japan before our marriage, and we had been married for 3 years happily, and we were blessed with 2 little boys, Vaughn, aged 28 months, and Chuck, aged 16 months. And we were greatly surprised when I was called to be president of the Northern Far East Mission. Elder Delbert L. Stapley of the Council of the 12 was touring the mission in Hawaii, and President McKay authorized him to set us apart as missionaries on November 1st, 1955 in Honolulu. At that time, we asked Elder Stapley, "How long will we be gone?" And his reply was, "Until you are released." From that time on, we were not concerned about when we would be released, although we had no idea that we would be gone for over 6.5 years. At that time, the Northern Far East Mission included Japan, Korea, and Okinawa. So the responsibility for building up the church in Japan, for sending in the missionaries and building up the church in Korea, and for sending in the missionaries and building up the church in Okinawa rested squarely on me. You missionaries will remember that you were called to the Northern Far East Mission. You were not called to Korea. After you arrived in Japan, then I called you to serve as missionaries in Korea. This was a great responsibility which I felt keenly, and I feel that I was inspired by our Father in heaven to choose you. The first 52 missionaries who served in Korea were Northern Far East missionaries, and you did a marvelous job. The record speaks for itself, and we love you and consider you as our friends forever. The experiences we had together as missionaries in Korea forged a bond of love and friendship which will endure forever, and we count you among our best friends. We look forward to renewing our association with you, either in this life or in the life to come.
On the evening of the historic dedication of Korea, the Korea District was organized and made part of the Far East Mission. President Smith set apart Brother Kim Ho-jik as District President and Brother Jesse Shumway as First Counselor. The men met together and wrote up a long report detailing the conditions Korean missionaries would have to face and the possibilities of building chapels. The next day, Colonel Tipton, Dr. Kim, and Elder Phai were requested to look into purchasing building sites. In order for missionaries to be sent to Korea, the work of establishing the church had to be done first. This problem was solved through the efforts of Brother Kim Ho-jik, who was Vice Minister of Education under Seungman Rhee's administration. Missionaries were expected to arrive on April 6, 1956, but because of visa problems, it was not until April 20th when Elders Powell and Deaton arrived in Seoul. Elders Newell Kimball and Dean M. Anderson, the second set of missionaries, arrived on June 1st. Elders Kimball and Powell were placed in Seoul, and Elders Deaton and Anderson served in Busan.
This is the first time I have returned since I left here in 1956. What I have witnessed here is truly a miracle of the Lord. The Lord has reached out His hand and touched this land and touched the hearts of the people in Korea. When I arrived, Dr. Kim and Brother Hong Byung-sik, a few others met me at the airport, Elder Denton and I, in an Army Jeep. These were the only vehicles we saw, Army Jeeps and Army trucks. There were no sedans, no freeways, no highways, no high-rise buildings, no hotels. This was truly a land of desolation. I have often been called the first missionary into Korea, but this really isn't the case. The first real missionaries in Korea wore combat boots, army fatigues, wore helmets, and carried an M16 rifle. We were met by 64 saints, including Dr. Kim Ho-jik, on April 20th, 1956. There were 64 saints here at that time, and many faithful LDS servicemen. These servicemen not only carried their rifle, but they carried their Book of Mormon and their scriptures with them. They taught many of the saints here, and I'm grateful for the beginnings which they made, which made it easier for Elder Denton and I and others who followed me. Conditions were harsh. No hot and cold running water, no electricity to speak of. We had to be very careful what we ate and what we drank. We had no printed material about the church, no songbooks, no lesson material, no Book of Mormon, and we virtually taught by the Spirit. I could never have dreamed of something like this happening today when we started here. This is an impossible dream to me. I know that God lives. I know that Jesus lives. He is our brother, and he loves each of you as his brother or sister. President Hinckley is a true prophet of God. This is not my work or President Hinckley's work. We're in the work of the Lord. I say this in the name of Jesus Christ.
The first Korean District Conference was held at Seoul High School on September 16, 1956. 30 people attended priesthood meeting, including 15 who held the priesthood. Nearly 100 people attended the inspiring general session with District President Kim Ho-jik conducting. In the afternoon, the LDS Military District Conference was held in the 8th U.S. Army Chapel. Afterwards, Korean saints and LDS soldiers joined together to attend a fireside. Elder Carmack remarked about the meeting.
This meeting was the conclusion of the Korean District Conference. 15 LDS soldiers and 45 Korean saints and investigators attended the meeting, which included a Bible quiz on the Gospel of John, Elder Kimball's musical number, and Major Derby and President Andrus's surprising duet. Brother Hobson and Elder Carr gave those present donuts and hot chocolate for refreshments. Today's meeting was conducted by Brother Hong Byung-shik.
Yurakdong, the area in which the missionaries lived, was heated by charcoal. Despite the smoky conditions, the number of members grew steadily. Dr. Kim Ho-jik and Mission President Andrus made many efforts to establish the legal foundation for the church. Finally, those efforts bore fruit, and the Korean saints rejoiced. Unfortunately, Elder Kim Ho-jik, the man who laid the foundation of the church in Korea, collapsed from a stroke during a meeting on August 28, 1959. He passed away on the 31st. Latter-day Saints felt sorrow as if they had lost their own father. People from all walks of life mourned the death of Elder Kim Ho-jik. Shortly after Dr. Kim's death, the Seoul Western Branch was organized on September 6, 1959, with Elder L. Edward Brown as president. In the beginning of 1960, Elder Gordon B. Hinckley became closely connected with Korea. He has visited Korea for many years and is a leader with endless love for the Korean people. In July 1962, 7 years after missionaries first came from the Far East Mission to serve in Korea, President David O. McKay announced the organization of the Korea Mission. Brother Gail Carr was called as the first mission president. During President Carr's tenure, branches increased from 5 to 7, and work on translating the Book of Mormon and the hymns began. Also, during President Carr's service in July 1963, the groundbreaking ceremony was held for the first standard chapel to be built on the Asian continent. This building is now Dongdaemun Ward. Succeeding President Carr, Brother Spencer J. Palmer, former LDS chaplain, was called as the second mission president. Under his guidance, the original district and 7 branches increased to 2 districts and 13 branches. The number of members also increased from 2,500 to 3,300, and the Western Branch's chapel was completed after 3 years and 3 months. Also, in August 1965, Elder Hanin Sung completed the translation of the Book of Mormon.
In the following years, President Robert H. Slover and President L. Edward Brown served successively as missionary president. In 1973, Korea's first stake, the Seoul Stake, was organized.
I returned in 1971 as a mission president with my own family. At that time, soon after I arrived in Korea, there were some new offices in the church which were created. These officers were called regional representatives. And 2 former mission presidents were called to be regional representatives in that part of the world, Japan, Korea. Brother Paul Andrus, who we mentioned earlier, and Brother Robert Slover, who had been mission president before me. President Slover's responsibility was for ecclesiastical supervision, that is, the organization of the church and the church programs relative to perfecting the saints, redeeming the dead, and so forth. President Andrus' responsibility was for missionary work. Brother Slover arrived in Korea in 1972. I'll never forget the challenge that he gave us. The challenge that I thought, oh, Brother Slover, you shouldn't be talking about this yet. He said we should set a goal to have the first stake in Korea in 2 years, by 1974. I thought to myself, oh, I don't think that's possible, but I didn't say anything to Brother Slover. Surprisingly, in less than a year, President Spencer W. Kimball, then the president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, called on the telephone. And President Brown, I have been assigned to organize the Seoul Stake. Oh, I was and surprised. And, of course, thought it was wonderful. President Kimball arrived in Korea, and you can imagine, to organize a whole stake presidency, high council, bishoprics, what a heavy assignment he would have.
Brother Ri Ho Nam was appointed as president. Elder Spencer W. Kimball, at that time president of the Quorum of the 12, directed the stake organization. Elder E. Ho Nam, who was the first stake president, delivered his farewell message at the gathering celebrating the 30th anniversary of the Seoul Stake.
The first stake on the Asian continent was established as the Seoul Stake. Speaking of stakes, in Isaiah we read, "Not one of the stakes thereof shall ever be removed, neither shall any of the cords thereof be broken." March 8th, 1973 was truly a historical day. On that long-awaited day, the stake was organized and the programs of each ward and branch were implemented. President Spencer W. Kimball himself organized the stakes and gave callings. I will always remember the devotion of Brother Kim Chan-sun and Brother Choi Uk-hwan and other brothers and sisters who were with us that day. After organizing the Seoul Stake of Zion,
I can still remember the words Spencer W. Kimball told me in a personal interview. He said to educate and teach all of the saints what service is. He quoted Doctrine and Covenants, section 4, verse 2. Therefore, O ye that embark in the service of God, see that ye serve him with all your heart, might, mind, and strength, that ye may stand blameless before God at the last day. He told me to teach the saints to strengthen their relationships with God. He emphasized that personal scripture study is a method to strengthen your testimony and strengthen your faith. Moreover, he spoke of the importance of the Institute of Religion. Because the soul stake of Zion was the first on the Asian continent, he encouraged the saints to diligently study Chinese in order for the gospel to be taught all over the Asian continent. The Lord's gospel will truly cover the entire earth. The last thing he said was to emphasize over and over again for the saints to endure to the end. They should not be followers of men, but followers of the Lord.
While serving as the mission president, Eugene P. Till was actively involved with the missionary singing groups, the New Horizon and the Tender Apples. The year 1975 holds special meaning to the saints in Korea. Of course, it was the year the Korea mission was split, but it was also the year when the First Korea Conference was held. In August 1975, President Kimball presided over the conference at the Jongcheon Athletic Center with 10,200 people attending. A cultural festival was also held the night before the conference. 10,000 people attended the cultural festivities, which included traditional dances, songs, and a taekwondo demonstration. In May 1977, the Seoul West Stake was formed. After rededication in November 1978, under the supervision of Elder Kikuchi, the Lord's work advanced even more. The sound of 73 different chapels singing praises all over the country spread out strongly in all directions. In September of 1979, the Seoul East Stake was organized with Brother Ko Wan-young as president. In the same year, the Seoul West Stake was organized with Brother Kim Chang-sun as president, and the Pusan Stake was organized with Brother Chang Jae-hwan as president. After that, Brother Hong Mu-gwang was called as president of the newly organized Seoul North Stake. In November 1981, Incheon Stake was organized with Brother Ho Che as president. While the Korean saints rejoiced at the dedication of the Tokyo Temple on October 27, 1980, they also longed for a temple in their own land. It was a wonderful present when the Seoul Temple was announced at the April 1981 General Conference. On the morning of April 1, 1981, President Spencer W. Kimball announced that 9 new temples would be built, starting with one in Seoul. The site for the temple was chosen in Sincheon. Leaders rejoiced when they saw the building site. Brother Waddle directed the construction, which was completed in the fall of 1985. On December 14th at 9:30 in the morning, President Gordon B. Hinckley presided over and conducted the cornerstone ceremony. It was an unforgettable spiritual experience for the Korean saints who watched this, the dedication of the first temple on the Asian continent. as President Hinckley reflected on his long ties with the Korean saints. He said, "Koreans are a kind and loving people, even after enduring the hardships and trials of invasion and war." He said he truly loves the Korean people and that he has shed more tears in Korea than in any other place in the world. In May 1991, the first Korean General Authority, Brother Han In-sung, was called to the Second Quorum of the 70. This came almost 35 years after the gospel was introduced to Korea. Born December 10, 1938, he was the oldest of 5 brothers and 2 sisters. While attending high school, Brother Han learned about the church and was baptized in April 1957. His faith grew with other members in the early days of the church through the example and teachings of Dr. Kim Ho-jik. He served in the Korea Mission from 1961 to 1964 and was appointed to translate the Book of Mormon. By completing this task, he contributed greatly to the faith of the Korean saints. Later, he received callings as the Seoul District President and the Korean Mission President. From 1978, he served as the first Korean regional representative. In 1985, he served as a representative of the Korean Administration Organization until he was called as a general authority. He and his wife, Sister Lee Gyu-in, have 2 daughters and 3 sons. From the time he was called as a general authority until 1995, he served in the Asia North Area Presidency. By 1996, he finished his duties in the 70s. He then served as the Seoul Temple President from 1996 to 2000.
As the church in Korea entered the 1990s, Korea's economic power and progress in modern technology opened new doors. In 1990, the Korean saints organized their own choir. The Onnuri Choir conducted a Korea-wide tour showcasing the church to the nation. In 1995, the choir drew rave reviews as it toured the United States. Also in 1995, Gordon B. Hinckley was called as president of the church. Building on his long-established ties with the Korean people, he returned to preside over the Korea Conference held in the Chamsil Sports Arena. The conference was very spiritual and an inspirational feast. Since the church's establishment in Korea, efforts have continued to tell the world about the church. When BYU's performance groups, a church-related organization, or a church leader visits, the Public Affairs Committee uses its influence to arrange opportunities for them to perform or to meet governmental and societal leaders. In 1987, a Public Affairs Committee was organized to better promote public relations. Brother Ko Won-yong initially headed the department, helping priesthood leaders magnify their callings in this regard. When President Hinckley visited Korea in 1999, the Public Affairs Committee arranged a press interview.
We'll sing and we'll shout with the armies of heaven. Hosanna, Hosanna.
The committee also publishes and distributes books and other materials to both church members and the public. One of the books was Feed My Sheep, a biography of Dr. Kim Ho-jik. The Public Affairs Committee also sponsors an annual blood drive, the Helping Hands program, and a North Korean humanitarian assistance drive. On December 22, 1991, 430 people attended a fireside at the Shindang Ward to commemorate the distribution of over 1 million copies of the Book of Mormon as of October 1991. At this fireside, the 1 millionth Book of Mormon and other souvenirs were given to Brother An Sang-hon. Other activities included a scripture quiz by the LDS Institute. In August 1997, the church sponsored a 4-day youth and single adult conference at the Manisan Tourist Farm. Over 900 youth and single adults participated. A conference preparation committee, which involved more than 60 individuals from all over the country, created a conference that included inspirational instruction, stimulating discussions, and colorful activities that taught members how to live a Christ-like life. In-country missionary training began in June 1980 with the instruction of elders Park Byung-jun and Lee Shin-young. In order to teach these missionaries, Institute teacher Brother Lee Do-hwan was called as president of the Missionary Training Center. Over 20 years of service by wonderful teachers and presidents has produced many fine missionaries. The Missionary Training Center prepares young men to be valiant servants, as well as committed lifetime members. To date, nearly 3,000 missionaries have been trained, including some who have served abroad in Canada, the United States, and elsewhere.
The celebration of the 50th anniversary of the dedication of Korea in 2005 was a very meaningful experience for the saints in Korea. The preparation for this event began in full swing in 2004. We had set up some major goals for ourselves as we started to prepare for the event. First, we wanted to be more than just simply a fun and exciting event. We wanted it to become a memorable spiritual experience and testimony-building opportunity for all the saints in Korea. We wanted all the experience, knowledge, and talents that were put into this effort to become permanent assets to all the stakes and wards that participated in this event, to help strengthen those organizations and their members. We are grateful to our Heavenly Father for allowing us to have President Hinckley, who loves Korea and its people, visit us. We are thankful for this event, which provided an opportunity for the Korean Church to grow in leaps and bounds. We hope that we will reach out to more people to teach them about the gospel. Thank you very much.
Members both in and outside of Korea were excited to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the dedication of gospel preaching in Korea and the 200th anniversary of the birth of the prophet Joseph Smith. It was a joyful occasion shared with members around the world. Planned for more than a year, this event included a cultural night festival on July 30th and an area conference on July 31st. In connection with the 50th anniversary celebration, a seminar looking back on Joseph Smith's life was held. A nationwide youth conference helped instill in the youth an appreciation for the great work performed during the previous 50 years. It also helped prepare the youth to serve valiantly during the next 50 years. Many mission president couples and missionaries who had served in the land over the years visited once again to share their love of the gospel with the Korean saints. They were pleasantly surprised to see how much Korea has changed for the better. Much to his chagrin, President Hinckley was unable to attend the cultural night, but many members were filled with gratitude for the opportunity to see President Hinckley when he arrived for the area conference. Even though President Hinckley, in just 2 weeks, had plans to attend the Samoa Temple rededication, the dedication of the Nigerian Temple, and meet with members in Taiwan, Italy, and France, he still visited and blessed the Korean people. Tears were shed from the warm love in their hearts for God's prophet. The inspiration from the 50th anniversary celebration burns ever brightly in the hearts of the Korean saints. At the time of the 50th anniversary celebration, the Korean name of the church, some church terms, and the scriptures were newly translated, helping the Korean people to more fully realize their potential in doing the Lord's work. It was a wonderful gift to the Korean members when President Thomas S. Monson sustained Elder Ko Won-young to the Second Quorum of the 70 in the 175th Annual General Conference on April 2, 2005. Elder Ko Won-young has devoted himself to the Lord as an area representative, Area Authority 70, and as second counselor in the Area Authority Presidency. He follows in the path of his Korean brother Elder Han In-sang, who previously served in the Second Quorum of the 70. In the past 50 years, church membership in Korea has grown from a handful of faithful saints to more than 80,000. With grateful hearts to the Lord and His dedicated servants, we rededicate ourselves to serving the Lord and His children in this blessed and hallowed part of His vineyard.
History is a study of the past. Although 50 years is relatively a short period of time, as we study and catalog the events that have transpired over the last 50 years, we hope that we will get to Thai. All the loose ends of the past together, and have a glimpse at a better, at a brighter future. We will remember what the Lord has done for us for these last 50 years and keep those valuable lessons in our hearts.